Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today we're going to present our group presentation, which is the title is inflation. So this is our group. We go by Muhammad Adi bin Sahiran and me, Muhammad Haris Danial bin Muhammad Harin Izmi. And last one of our team member is Muhammad Hafiq Aiman bin Idris. So the first question is define inflation and describe its main type of inflation. Supply your explanation with relevant examples from the site articles and from the current economy issue. So this is our answer. So definition of inflation is the rate at which the general level of price for goods and service rise, resulting in a decline in the purchasing power of money. It is typically measured using the consumer price index, or we call it CPI. So there is a four types of inflation. So the first one is demand pull inflation. Second is cost push inflation. The third one is import inflation. And lastly is built-in inflation. So demand pull inflation. This occurs when demand for goods and services exceeds supply. For example, the article highlights that the Malaysian government plan to increase the minimum wage in budget 2025 may increase purchasing power, potentially raising demand and price. However, the impact is expected to be small. And the second one is cost push inflation. This happens when production costs increase, leading to higher price. The article cites the rationalization of diesel subsidies and rising vehicle insurance as example. Diesel price rose 20.1%, which is a direct contributor to inflation. The third one is imported inflation. This occurs when the cost of import goods rise due to foreign inflation or currency depreciation. The article mentioned global supply chain disruption, and global commodity price hikes as external factors contributing to inflation. And lastly is built-in inflation. This arises from a cycle of wage increase and price increase. Employers employers raise wage to keep up with rising living costs, which then cause businesses to increase prices. So that's all for question number one. And now we're moving on to question number two.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad AIMAN bin Muhammad Idris, and today I'm going to talk about something super important, especially when it comes to our daily expenses, which is inflation, or more specifically, how the Malaysian government collects Consumer Price Index or CPI data to measure inflation. So, firstly, what is the CPI? CPI stands for Consumer Price Index, and it measures the average change in prices paid by consumers for a fixed basket of goods and services, which is things like food, petrol, rent, healthcare, and also education. It's one of the main indicators used to calculate inflation. So, the main question is, who collects the CPI data? So in Malaysia, the CPI is collected and calculated by the Department of Statistics of Malaysia, or DOSM. So they do this every single month, and the process is super detailed. So here is how it works. Over 21,000 retail outlets are visited across Malaysia, covering everything from supermarkets, clinics, and restaurants, and also gas stations. Prices are collected physically by field officers and also through online platforms and telephone surveys. These prices are then tracked for more than 500 items, things we all use daily like rice, vegetable, petrol, school supplies, and more. But not all items are equal. Each item in the basket is given a weight based on how important it is in the average household's spending. For example, food and housing get higher weights because Malaysians spend more on them. These weights come from household expenditure surveys done every few years. Then, the government compares current prices to those in a base year using a formula called the last payers index. So, in short, CPI is carefully calculated using real prices collected nationwide, and it reflects how much the cost of living is changing. This information will help the policymakers set budgets, adjust subsidies, and also manage inflation. And that is how the government tracks the CPI to measure inflation. So I think that's all from me. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.
So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Adib. So, first of all, thank you for Muhammad Afi Aiman for presenting the question number two. So, moving on to my next point, which is the question number three. The question asks how to discuss, let's discuss with the relevant example, how inflation impacts on individual society welfare and standard of living in Malaysia. Okay, so the answer for the question is inflation affect individual society welfare and the standard of living in Malaysia in several significant ways. When prices of goods and service rise, the purchasing power of money falls, meaning people can buy less with the same income. For example, if the price of basic food items like rice, cooking oil, or eggs increases, lower income households will struggle more to afford daily necessities, forcing them to cut back on the other essentials like healthcare or education. On a broader level, inflation can widen the income gap in society. Wealthier individuals may cope better as they have assets that increase in value like property, while poorer households suffer more. In Malaysia, rising fuel price can lead to increased transportation costs, which then cause price of goods to rise across the board, a situation known as Cost push inflation, sorry. Over time, if wages do not keep up with inflation, the standard of living can decline, leading to increased social tension, reduced consumer confidence, and slower economic growth. Therefore, controlling inflation is crucial to maintaining a fair and stable standard of living for all Malaysians. So we are moving on to the next question, the last question for our group presentation, which is the question number four. The question asks, with supporting data, explain the policy measures the government agencies or non-government organization (NGO) that could be effective in controlling rising inflation in Malaysia based on the article. So the answer for the last question is to control rising inflation in Malaysia, the government and related agencies have taken several effective steps. Bank Negara Malaysia, which is the BNM, has kept the interest rate steady at 3% to manage the money supply and reduce inflation without harming economic growth. The government also began removing broad fuel subsidies, such as for diesel, and replaced them with targeted cash aid for low-income groups and essential transport services, saving about 4 billion ringgit Malaysia a year. At the same time, price control efforts such as the Menu Rahmah program and inspections by the Ministry of Domestic Trade (KPDN) have keep prices of basic items like chicken and eggs stable. Other measures include increasing taxes on luxury goods and sugary drinks and expanding the sales and service tax (SST) to reduce the government reliance on subsidies, which cost 70 billion ringgit annually. NGOs and consumer groups also play a role by promoting price awareness to prevent businesses from overcharging. Together, these policies aim to keep inflation within the target range of 2 to 3.5% while protecting the welfare of vulnerable nations. So that's all. That's the final presentation for our group. So thank you to you guys. Thank you.